It was Sunday afternoon, the kind of sticky, warm day that made everyone want to move slowly. My family, the Bryans, was gathered for our monthly dinner. I watched my daughter, Maya, who was 12, neatly stacking plates in the kitchen. Maya always helped. She was naturally organized and thoughtful. Before I tell you how I got my revenge, hit that like button and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this ends. The dining room table was still crowded with aunties and uncles, including my younger sister, Claire. Claire was speaking loudly about her new luxury car, holding court as usual. Maya walked in with a heavy tray of used silverware. She was careful not to make noise. Claire paused her story just long enough to glance at Maya. "Oh, look at that," Claire chirped, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. Maya is so good at helping out. Honestly, she looks like she was born for the job. Our little housemaid. The room went silent. Maya's face instantly flushed crimson. She dropped the silverware tray with a sharp, metallic crash. I felt a cold, deep wave of fury wash over me. Claire, oblivious to the damage, simply frowned at the mess on her Persian rug. I stepped forward, not toward the mess, but toward my sister. Claire had gone too far this time. I ignored the scattered spoons and forks. I walked straight past my sister, Claire, and placed a hand on Maya's shaking shoulder. Maya was near tears, her eyes wide and wet with shock. "It's okay, sweetie. It's just silverware," I murmured, helping her stand up. I led her quickly out of the dining room, away from the staring relatives and Claire's awful, dismissive face. Once we were in the quiet hallway, I pulled my daughter into a fierce, protective hug. "Listen to me, Maya," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You are the kindest, smartest person in this whole house. Your Aunt Claire is cruel. Her words are trash, and you don't need to worry about picking up trash." Maya sniffled, clutching my shirt tightly. "But why would she say that, Mom?" I squeezed my eyes shut, struggling to control the anger that was now a frozen block in my chest. "Because she feels small, honey. She has to make other people feel small to feel big herself. It has nothing to hand over to you." I was quiet then, letting a fierce promise settle in my heart. I wasn't the kind of person who yelled or started fights. But I was a mother, and my daughter had just been publicly humiliated and hurt. Claire needed a lesson in respect, one that would stick. I wouldn't fight my sister with loud words or screaming matches. I would fight her with careful planning and strategy. The game was definitely on. Now that I had calmed Maya, I allowed myself to think about Claire. My younger sister had always been like this. Everything about her was designed to announce how much better she was than everyone else. Claire wore expensive, tailored suits even to casual Sunday dinner. She didn't own clothes. She owned designer garments. Her job as a high-end real estate agent meant she spent her days showing off million-dollar homes, which only made her judgment of our middle class live sharper. She also had a daughter, Chloe, who was Maya's age. Claire constantly pushed Chloe to excel in every possible activity, from expensive horseback riding lessons to exclusive French tutoring. Claire loved telling everyone about Chloe's achievements, especially when Maya was within earshot. In Claire's mind, Chloe was destined for the top universities and glamorous success. Maya, simply because she was kind enough to clear plates after dinner, was destined for something less important. The "housemaid" comment wasn't just a joke, it was a statement of Claire's belief that my daughter was inferior. This was the real problem. My revenge wouldn't be about damaging her things. It would be about cracking that perfect, self-important shell she lived in. Later that evening, after Maya was asleep, I sat alone in the quiet living room. The anger was still there, but it was no longer a quick flame. It was a slow, burning coal. I realized what truly hurt about Claire's comment. It wasn't just the word, housemaid. It was the way she delivered it, as a final judgment on Maya's whole future. Claire loves to label people. She labels me as the boring, sensible older sister, and Maya as the sweet, harmless niece. By calling Maya a housemaid, she was saying, "Your kindness means you'll do menial work. You won't achieve great things." It was a cold insult directed not just at Maya's present actions, but at her potential. I have big dreams for Maya. She is bright, creative, and has a unique way of looking at the world. Her value isn't measured by how many expensive lessons she takes, but by her character and intelligence. Claire's casual cruelty, felt like a direct threat to everything I was trying to build for my daughter, a life where she felt valued for being herself. The fight I was about to start wasn't about clearing dishes or expensive cars. It was about defending my daughter's future from Claire's poisonous snobbery. Claire had questioned my daughter's worth, and now I would question hers. The moment I finished analyzing Claire's cruelty, the shaking stopped. My anger didn't disappear. It transformed into something colder and much harder. It was a clear, focused determination. I knew I couldn't just yell at her. Claire would simply dismiss me as the jealous older sister. That would be her victory, not mine. This wouldn't be about screaming or insults. My revenge had to be subtle, strategic, and most importantly, it had to hit Claire where she lived. Her reputation. Her perfect, polished life was her shield, and her pride was her greatest weakness. I didn't want to destroy her career or her happiness forever, but I did want to puncture that bubble of superiority she hid inside. She needed to feel the kind of public discomfort Maya had felt. I walked over to my desk and opened my laptop. I wasn't just planning revenge. I was planning justice. I needed a code name for this operation, something strong and sharp. I typed a new folder title, Project Maven. A maven is an expert, someone who knows things and sees details others miss. I was going to become a maven of Claire's weaknesses. My fight to defend Maya had just graduated from an emotion to a mission. Project Maven required research, and that meant observing Claire. Claire was always showing off, so it wasn't hard to watch her. I started spending time on her social media, not to like her perfect photos, but to study them. She posted pictures of her gourmet dinners, her trips, and especially her work achievements. Everything was polished, smooth, and expensive. I realized her true weakness wasn't money or possessions. It was the intense need for approval. Claire lived for the praise of her colleagues and her wealthy clients. She was obsessed with her professional standing. If even a tiny bit of dirt touched her perfect image, she would panic and lash out. I noticed a key pattern. She never shared anything genuine or messy. If a real estate deal went wrong, she blamed the economy or the seller. She was terrified of looking anything less than successful and trustworthy. I started collecting small pieces of data, a comment she deleted quickly, a past address she never mentioned, an old boss she clearly avoided. This wasn't spying, this was strategic intelligence. I was looking for the weak link in her shiny armor, and I found it. Her reputation was everything. I just needed to prove it was fragile. My research into Claire wasn't hard work. It was more like reading a badly hidden script. Claire posts everything, believing her life is a show everyone should admire. I started paying close attention to the small details in her work posts. She kept mentioning a big closing, a career milestone, and meetings with the executive committee. A quick search of her firm's news section confirmed my suspicion. Claire was in the running for a major promotion, senior director of luxury listings. This role wasn't just about selling houses. It was about representing the entire company to their wealthiest, most exclusive clients. The article mentioned that the person chosen must possess unimpeachable character and trust. Unimpeachable. Flawless. That single word was like a light turning on. This wasn't just a job title. It was the ultimate symbol of the perfect reputation Claire had worked so hard to build. If she lost the promotion, it wouldn't just hurt her bank account. It would shatter the entire facade she used to judge others, including Maya. This was the weak link, the target I had been looking for. Hitting her here, just as she was reaching for her biggest prize, would deliver the lesson she truly needed to learn about arrogance and respect. This was better than I ever could have hoped. I opened the digital folder named Project Maven and created a new file called Claire's Receipts. This would be my secret journal, the place where I stored every tiny inconsistency I found. I wasn't looking for major crimes, just small, factual exaggerations that, when put together, painted a picture of someone who wasn't totally honest. First, the university detail. Claire always claimed she graduated from the prestigious Crestwood University. I remembered her saying she'd spent one unhappy semester at the local community college first. A quick check of public records, easy to do since she used her full name, showed she only attended Crestwood for the final 2 years. She never mentioned the community college. That was one minor exaggeration. Next, her first job. She told everyone she was a creative consultant right out of school. I tracked down an old LinkedIn profile she hadn't deleted and found the truth. She started as a junior office assistant, which meant she mostly fetched coffee. Each small lie was a tiny weight, harmless on its own, but heavy when dropped all at once. I logged the date, the lie, and the proof in my secret journal. The more I looked, the more the perfect, glossy Claire began to peel away, revealing a scared young woman underneath who had always felt the need to fake it. After days of collecting Claire's tiny lies, I realized Project Maven had two important parts. The first was exposing Claire's weak facade, but the second, and more important, was strengthening Maya. Claire had tried to define Maya with a cruel, insulting word. I had to redefine her with truth, talent, and undeniable success. Maya wasn't a housemaid. She was an artist and a dedicated creator. She spent hours building intricate digital worlds on her computer, sketching complex character designs, and even learning Python code just to make her drawings interactive and come alive. Her passion was genuine and deep, unlike my niece Chloe's forced French lessons and expensive hobbies. Maya loved this work. It wasn't about pleasing anyone, it was about pure talent. I quietly registered Maya for a citywide coding showcase, a competition for young digital artists and programmers. I didn't tell her it was a direct answer to Claire. I just framed it as a fantastic chance to show off her incredible skills. When Claire inevitably heard about it, she'd probably just sneer, calling it a silly hobby. But I knew better. This wasn't a hobby. This was Maya's future, sharp and bright. Her eventual success would be the most elegant and undeniable argument against Claire's terrible insult. With Maya focused on her coding showcase and my receipts file full of Claire's small deceptions, it was time to finalize the strategy. I wasn't going to send one massive, scandalous email. That was too messy, and Claire would trace it instantly. Project Maven was designed for quiet chaos. The goal was to inject small, truthful doubts into Claire's professional circles right before the promotion decision was made. Trust, once broken, is impossible to fully repair. I planned to use 3 separate pieces of information from Claire's receipts at 3 different moments. The first would be subtle, a tiny seed of doubt about her old job title, aimed at a low-level colleague who loved office gossip. The second would be a little stronger, targeting her networking groups, hinting at the half-truth about her education. The final piece would be reserved for the big presentation itself, the moment of maximum pressure. I needed to make sure these truths appeared to come from nowhere, like old memories suddenly resurfacing. Claire was so busy managing her perfect present that she forgot about her imperfect past. I just needed to remind everyone else. The clock was ticking. The promotion meeting was only 2 weeks away. The time for planning was over. It was time for the first, gentle push. I chose a quiet Tuesday morning, knowing Claire would be stressed about her promotion meetings. The tension alone would make her jumpy. I opened a new, untraceable email account, ensuring there was no link back to my personal computer or internet. The target was Sarah, a junior associate who worked in a different department at Claire's real estate firm. Sarah wasn't important to the company's leaders, but she loved to gossip and was already a little jealous of Claire's constant bragging. Claire often talked down to Sarah, making her the perfect person to plant the seed of doubt. I crafted the email carefully, using a neutral, chatty tone. I wrote, "Hi Sarah, quick question. I was looking up some old company info online and saw a reference to Claire's first role. Wasn't it junior office assistant when she started? I always thought she started as a creative consultant, like she always says. Just curious if I misremembered." I clicked send. It wasn't an accusation. It was just a small, factual detail slipped into the office rumor mill. That job title, junior office assistant, was perfectly harmless, but it clashed with the polished, impressive story Claire told everyone. I imagined Sarah reading it, her eyebrows rising in surprise. She would feel a tiny spark of satisfaction, knowing the great Claire wasn't so perfect after all. The first pebble had been dropped into Claire's calm, carefully managed pond. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please subscribe now. Also let me know where you are watching from in the comment section. I didn't have to wait long to see the ripple effect of my email. I heard about it the very next day from my mother. Claire had called her, complaining bitterly about workplace drama and petty jealousies in the office. Claire never calls Mom just to chat. so I knew the seed had definitely sprouted. Mom said Claire was furious that someone was talking about her old job title. Claire insisted she had been misremembering the title and swore she never actually fetched coffee, even though my receipts, journal proved otherwise. It wasn't the lie itself that bothered Claire. It was the fact that a tiny, unglamorous part of her past had surfaced, threatening her current image of success. She thinks it's that new girl, Sarah, trying to sabotage her, Mom said, sighing. Perfect. Claire was too arrogant and focused on the future to realize the doubt came from a simple, factual record of her past. She immediately blamed a jealous colleague. She was already becoming paranoid, lashing out at people around her, viewing the smallest doubt as a conspiracy. She dismissed the rumor as simple office gossip, but I could hear the tightness in her voice, relayed through Mom. Claire was scared. This small crack was just a practice run, a confirmation that I had found the right pressure point. I smiled, a cold, satisfied feeling spreading through me. The small pebbles were working perfectly. The day of the citywide coding showcase finally arrived, 4 days after I planted the first seed of doubt at Claire's office. Claire wasn't invited. I only invited people who genuinely supported Maya, but I knew she would hear about it. Claire's mother-in-law, who was a friend of ours, had promised to mention it at the next Bridge Club meeting. Maya was nervous, but she stood tall beside her computer. Her project was called Echo, a complex digital environment where users could sketch a character and then code its emotional reactions using Python scripts. It was clever, sophisticated, and entirely her own work. It was the antithesis of the Housemaid label. When the judges announced the winners, my heart hammered in my chest. First place in the junior category, Maya Bryan for Echo. Maya's face lit up, not with arrogance, but with pure, honest pride. She didn't win because her parents paid for expensive lessons. She won because she was brilliant and worked hard. I watched as she gracefully accepted her trophy, knowing that every person who saw her standing there, confident and talented, was seeing the truth of who she was. Her success was a silent, powerful punch back against Claire's cruelty. This was the victory that truly mattered. The news of Maya's win reached Claire instantly, thanks to my strategic communication with her mother-in-law. 2 days later, Claire called me, which was rare unless she needed something or wanted to brag. This time, she wanted to neutralize the good news. "Dawn," she said, her voice bright and overly cheerful. "I heard about the little coding thing Maya did. That's just so sweet. First place, how cute." I kept my voice flat. It was a prestigious competition, Claire. She won against high school students. "Oh, well, yes, of course. Still, I'm glad she has a nice little hobby to focus on." Claire continued, talking over me. "It's important for children to have simple interests before they get to the serious stuff, like university applications. Chloe's French tutor says she's already learning phrases Maya won't hear until college." I realized she couldn't compliment Maya without downgrading her achievement. She saw Maya's talent not as a serious skill, but as a harmless craft, like embroidery. She dismissed the complexity of coding as something cute. She was trying to fit Maya's success back into the box she had built for her, the box labeled unimportant. Her patronizing tone hardened my resolve. Claire's insecurity was showing. She couldn't stand the idea that Maya was genuinely succeeding without the expensive scaffolding Claire provided for Chloe. She had just refueled Project Maven. Now it was time for the second move, aiming for a slightly bigger splash. Claire was constantly networking, and her online presence was her most important professional tool. She often connected with senior real estate managers on a site that featured memory posts, photos from years ago that would randomly pop up on people's feeds. I remembered a terrible photo of Claire from her college days. She had been on a beach trip with friends, wearing an unflattering outfit and clearly looking less polished than her current corporate image. It wasn't damaging, but it was embarrassing, the kind of picture a senior director candidate would pay to erase. Claire had scrubbed her main profile clean, but I found the original post shared by a distant college friend whose privacy settings were less strict. Using a method I found online, I managed to like the long-forgotten post using a fake account I created just for Claire's social circle. By interacting with the post, I pushed the algorithm to show it to some of Claire's primary professional connections as an old memory. The next day, 2 of her managing partners would see Claire looking messy and immature with the caption, TBT to when Claire thought a glitter vest was high fashion. It was a tiny, harmless bomb of embarrassment, shattering the illusion of her lifelong perfection just days before her crucial presentation. The day of Claire's major presentation finally arrived. It was the only thing she had talked about for 2 solid weeks. She knew the entire executive committee would be there, judging her not just on her sales figures, but on her composure and credibility. I made sure to be subtly informed about the exact timing and the room where it would take place, thanks to an accidentally overheard conversation. The small pebbles I had thrown, the old job title rumor and the messy college photo, had done their work. Claire wasn't just focused, she was frantic. Mom mentioned Claire snapping at her assistant, demanding that every statistic and number in the slide deck be triple-checked. Claire was terrified of making even a tiny mistake. Her facade of perfection was already straining under the weight of the promotion pressure and the minor doubts I had introduced. This presentation was everything to her. It was the moment she was supposed to prove she was above everyone else, especially me and Maya. It was the peak of her pedestal. I pictured her standing there, wearing a stiff, expensive suit, trying to look perfectly unimpeachable. But I knew, thanks to Project Maven, that her mind was racing, checking for enemies she couldn't see. She had no idea that the final, most damaging piece of truth was about to surface. The moment was ripe for the strategic blow. The countdown to 0 had begun. I didn't attend the presentation, but I had prepared the final blow. I knew from Claire's schedule that the Q&A session, the moment when the executives looked for cracks in confidence, would be 30 minutes after she started. I had pre-written a brief, respectful question and sent it from a different untraceable email address addressed to the head of the committee. It wasn't malicious, it was purely factual. The question I engineered was, in reference to the high trust required for this director role, could Claire clarify the record regarding her educational background, specifically the length of her attendance at Crestwood University versus her prior enrollment at the local community college? The email wasn't designed to be read aloud, but simply to land on the committee head's computer screen during the Q&A. It was subtle enough to seem like due diligence from a concerned party, yet direct enough to trigger the doubt I had stored in Claire's receipts. Claire had spent years claiming she went straight to Crestwood. That small, unnecessary lie was about to hit her reputation right when she needed it to be flawless. This moment was for Maya. I sat by my phone, feeling a strange mix of dread and icy satisfaction. I knew the exact moment the committee head would read my anonymous email. I imagined him nodding politely, then glancing down at the unexpected question about Claire's college history. It was a detail so small, yet so crucial to her narrative of perfection. I didn't hear from Claire, but I heard from Mom barely an hour after the meeting was scheduled to end. Her voice was thin with worry. "Claire is home, Dawn. She's absolutely hysterical." Mom explained that during the Q&A, the committee chair hadn't read the question out loud, but had simply asked Claire to briefly elaborate on her early academic history before joining Crestwood. Claire, already tight with stress and paranoia from the previous rumors, immediately froze. She stammered, trying to make the community college semester sound like an advanced studies program. Her smooth, professional composure completely dissolved. The executives exchanged uneasy glances. They weren't judging her for attending a community college. They were judging her for visibly lying and panicking over such a minor fact. The question, perfectly timed and targeted, made her look shifty and unreliable, the exact opposite of the unimpeachable character the promotion required. The facade was cracking wide open. Later that same evening, Claire called me directly. Her voice wasn't the confident, cheerful tone I was used to. It was raw and shaking, full of bitterness. "You won't believe the snake pit I work in, Dawn," she spat. "Someone is deliberately trying to sabotage me. First the stupid junior office assistant rumor, then that humiliating photo, and now this targeted question about my college history." I listened quietly, letting her rage burn itself out. She never once considered that the source might be outside her office. She was so convinced of her own importance that she believed the entire conspiracy had to be orchestrated by a jealous rival at work. Specifically, she blamed her hardworking, low-paid assistant, Maria, who Claire routinely belittled. "It has to be Maria," Claire insisted wildly. She printed my notes. She knew the college lie was weak. I saw her looking at me strangely during the presentation. I'm going to report her for sabotage and professional misconduct. This entire disaster is her fault for not checking my background thoroughly enough. I felt a cold shiver. Claire hadn't learned anything about humility or honesty. The minute her perfect world crumbled, she looked for the weakest person to crush. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about exposing her true character to the world. She was busy destroying her own credibility with paranoia and baseless accusations. Project Maven was winning without me having to say a single word. The news came 2 days later. Claire didn't get the promotion. The job went to a stable, quiet manager who Claire had always ignored. Our family decided to have dinner that night, mostly to try and calm Claire down, though she mostly just drank wine and complained about the incompetent old boys club at her firm. I watched her, devastated but still arrogant, still blaming Maria. I waited until Maya had gone to bed and the dinner plates were cleared, ironically, by me and my husband. Claire was sitting alone on the sofa, clutching her wine glass. They chose Mark. Mark, she wailed. He has no ambition, no style, just a boring, clean history. This is completely unjust. I sat next to her, speaking calmly into the tense silence. It wasn't unjust, Claire. It was calculated. You told them you were a flawless, unimpeachable director, but every time you opened your mouth, you revealed a tiny piece of a scared junior office assistant who fetched coffee, lied about community college, and threw glitter vest parties on the beach. Claire stared at me, her eyes widening in slow, horrified realization. How did you? She whispered, finally understanding. I leaned in, my voice low and firm. You worry about who clears the dishes, Claire, but I keep the receipts. The silence after I spoke was heavier than any shouting match we'd ever had. Claire didn't move for a long minute, just staring at me, her face pale. The horror slowly melted into a terrible, burning disbelief. You, she choked out. You did this. My own sister? You sabotaged my career. She jumped up, spilling wine onto the carpet, a messy imperfection she wouldn't even notice. Her hands shook as she pointed at me. Her voice rose, raw with wounded pride. You're pathetic, Dawn. You're just jealous. You've always been the sensible, boring one who stayed home. You're trying to destroy me because Maya won a little ribbon and Chloe is still better at French. She was falling back into her old labels, desperate to make my action about my inferiority, not her cruelty. It was easier for her to believe I was hateful than to accept she had been cruel to Maya. Her denial was absolute. She wasn't shocked by her own lies being exposed. She was shocked that her quiet older sister had the sharp intelligence and means to challenge her. She flung her empty glass onto the sofa. I hate you, she screamed. I let Claire's hateful words hang in the air for a moment. Her rage was entirely predictable, but I refused to let it pull me into an emotional fight. I straightened my back and spoke clearly, cutting through her hysteria. No, Claire. I didn't destroy your career. I simply exposed a few tiny, factual inconsistencies that you yourself created. And I didn't do it because I'm jealous of you. I did it because of the way you tried to label my daughter. I stepped closer, forcing her to look me in the eye. You called Maya a housemaid. You told her, and everyone else, that her kindness and helpfulness meant she was destined for a lesser life. You used that cruel label to make yourself feel superior just because she was stacking plates and not wearing an expensive riding helmet. I paused, emphasizing the final lesson. My job was never to make you suffer. My job was to prove that your pedestal, that feeling of superiority you stand on, is built entirely on lies. The moment you faced real pressure, you crumbled, and the only people you hurt were the innocent, like your assistant, Maria. This wasn't revenge for me, Claire. This was a lesson in what happens when you treat hard work and a good heart with disrespect. Maya deserves better than your judgment. The confrontation with Claire shattered the false peace our family had maintained for years. The next day, calls started coming in from other relatives who had been at the dinner. Mom called me first, sounding torn but ultimately supportive. Claire told everyone you confessed to ruining her career, Mom whispered. But your father, he remembered how cruel Claire was to you when you were kids. He said she deserved a reality check. Aunt Carol, Claire's mother-in-law, and my bridge club contact, also called. She wasn't angry about the gossip. She was tired of Claire's constant snobbery toward her own son and Chloe. She was awful to Maya, Dawn. You should have heard the things she said about Maya's coding project being a waste of time. We're all just tired of tiptoeing around her perfect life. The family didn't erupt into open warfare, but the lines were clearly drawn. People who had long suffered Claire's endless judgment finally chose silence, or quietly reached out to me and Maya. Claire found herself isolated, not because I turned everyone against her, but because her reaction to the truth proved I was right. She retreated, silent and alone in her expensive house, forced to confront the wreckage of her own arrogance. 2 years passed quietly. We didn't see much of Claire. She maintained a tense distance, only showing up for major holidays, where her presence was subdued, and she never once spoke down to anyone, especially Maya. The distance was exactly the peace my daughter and I needed. Maya, now 14, was soaring. The coding showcase had been the start of a fantastic journey. She had just been accepted into a highly selective pre-engineering program for high school students. The interview panel was impressed not just by her technical portfolio, which included Echo, now much more advanced, but by her maturity and confidence. She wasn't just smart, she was resilient. Claire's cruel label had faded into a meaningless memory, replaced by real, quantifiable achievement. When I looked at Maya, I didn't see a housemaid. I saw a confident young woman who knew her worth and who commanded respect naturally. Her success wasn't revenge against Claire, but the permanent, graceful answer to the insult. Claire had tried to define Maya's future narrowly, but Maya had broadened her horizon through sheer talent and hard work. Her life was wide open, bright, and full of possibility. My job was done. Just before Christmas, 2 years after the disastrous family dinner, an envelope arrived for me. It was thick, heavy, and smelled faintly of Claire's expensive perfume. Inside, there was a card and a small check intended for Maya's college fund. The message inside the card was short, stiff, and utterly lacking in warmth, but it was honest in a way Claire had never been before. It simply read, "Dawn, I understand why you did what you did. I was wrong to say that to Maya. I'm sorry. There was no attempt to blame, only a quiet admission of fault. I didn't call her back. I didn't frame the note or broadcast her apology. I simply deposited the check into Maya's account. Claire had finally paid her debt, not with money, but with the painful surrender of her pride. The final victory of Project Maven wasn't Claire's public humiliation. It was the private peace Maya now enjoyed, knowing that the people she loved valued her genuine self. We kept the quiet distance, but the poisonous atmosphere was gone. My focus returned fully to Maya, her projects, and her bright future. Claire's judgment no longer mattered. We were free. If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more powerful narratives, and share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear what part hit you the hardest. Thanks for watching.